Welcome to Revisit Books podcast, where we turn books into bite-sized wisdom you can use every day.
Today we're looking at something maybe a bit counterintuitive in our fast-paced world. We often think the smartest person is the one with the quick answer, the confident statement.
Right, the one who speaks first or loudest.
Exactly. But the book we're diving into today, Power Questions by Andrew Sobel and Jerold Panas, it really pushes back against that. It argues pretty strongly that, well, the answer is only ever as good as the question that came before it.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Power questions. The core idea, right from the start, seems to be that asking really good, insightful questions. That's often much more powerful than just jumping in with advice or, the easy answer.
Precisely. And they argue that just giving answers can actually undermine what you're trying to do, whether that's building trust as an advisor or even just being a better friend.
So what's the book's sort of mission then? What are the authors trying to achieve?
Well, they lay it out pretty clearly. They want to show how the right question asked at the right time, it works like a master key. It doesn't just open a single door. It can unlock whole conversations, help redefine problems that seem messy or vague.
Cut through the noise, maybe?
Yeah, cut through the noise and get right to the heart of things. It changes the whole feel of the conversation, from someone telling you stuff to figuring things out together.
And it's interesting you say master key because this isn't some brand new technique, is it? The book mentions this has deep historical roots.
Oh, absolutely. They point out that some of the most transformational figures in history knew this instinctively. They knew questions had a kind of leverage that just telling people things, it couldn't match. Socrates is the classic example, obviously.
The Socratic method, yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone's heard of it, but maybe not always thought about why it worked.
Right, and Socrates wasn't just testing knowledge. He used questions as a teaching tool. His whole method was designed to make people question their own assumptions, the things they believed, without really thinking about why.
So it forces engagement. You can't just passively listen.
Exactly. He knew that real change, the kind that sticks, it only happens when you arrive at the conclusion yourself. You haven't just been told it.
And you see similar things in, other traditions too, right?
Yeah.
Using dialogue, probing questions to make people really wrestle with ideas.
Definitely. Fast forward to more modern times, the authors highlight how this continued with, some major thinkers in the 20th century. Take Albert Einstein.
We think of him as the genius with the equations, the complex physics.
And he was, of course. But the book reminds us his biggest insights often came from just intense curiosity, from asking fundamental questions.
And not just complex scientific ones either. The example they give is almost childlike, isn't it? He's looking at sunlight.
Yeah, the story goes he's watching light on a field, this beautiful moment, and he asks himself this incredibly simple visual question. Could I travel on that beam of light?
Wow. Just like that.
Just like that. And asking that what-if question, what if I could do this impossible thing, it completely reframed how he thought about relativity. It wasn't about calculating based on what was known. It was about imagining the impossible and then working out the rules for that. He even said his genius was just passionate curiosity.
That really changes how you think about breakthroughs, doesn't it? It's not just crunching numbers. It's this deep, almost philosophical exploration. But then you have someone totally different, like Peter Drucker.
Drucker, the management guru.
Right. And he applied this curiosity directly to, the bottom line of huge companies.
Yes, and his whole reputation was built on these intense questioning sessions. He knew organizations, just like people, get comfortable. They tell themselves stories, so he rarely jumped in with advice. Instead, he'd ask these simple but really sharp questions that could just dismantle years of assumptions.
Like, what business are you really in?
Exactly that. Or, what do your customers actually value? Questions that seem obvious, maybe, but often weren't being asked seriously.
And wasn't there something about what he called himself? He didn't like being called a consultant.
That's right. He hated the term consultant, felt it implied, soft advice, prepackaged solutions. He preferred to call himself an insultant.
An insultant. That's quite a statement.
It really is, isn't it? But it captures his approach perfectly. He saw his job as introducing a bit of healthy challenge, a bit of discomfort, kind of. Insulting the status quo, the mediocre thinking that can take root. His questions were designed to make clients face potentially inconvenient truths about their strategy or their market. His success wasn't telling them what to do, it was making them realize for themselves that maybe their whole foundation was a bit shaky.
Okay, so we've got the historical weight, the intellectual backing for this idea of powerful questions. Let's shift now to who this is really for. Who benefits most from mastering this?
Well, judging by the praise the book got, it seems the audience is incredibly wide. This isn't just, a trick for salespeople or CEOs. It's presented as a guide for success and building trust across pretty much all your relationships, personal and professional.
So it's foundational. One executive even called the questions the vital building blocks for understanding people and businesses.
That's a good way to put it. If we break it down, though, let's start with the professional side. Who in the working world really needs this?
Okay.
Well, the list is long. Salespeople obviously trying to uncover needs the client hasn't even clearly stated yet. Consultants who need to challenge assumptions but also build trust. Executives right up to Fortune 500 CEOs trying to keep their teams focused. Supervisors wanting to actually motivate people, not just manage them. Even development officers and nonprofits trying to build meaningful connections with donors.
It sounds like the core idea professionally is moving beyond just transactions, using questions to build real partnerships.
Exactly. It's about shifting from being seen as just a vendor or a service provider to becoming, well, an indispensable advisor, someone they trust to understand their real issues.
So if you're struggling in sales, maybe you're talking too much.
That's often it, talking too much, asking too few deep questions. Or as a consultant, maybe you're solving the problem you see, not the one the client is actually wrestling with deep down.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And then there's the personal angle. If it works in a high-stakes business meeting.
It absolutely works at home, too. The book makes it clear this is for anyone looking for deeper, more real connections. Parents talking with their kids, teachers with students, friends trying to understand each other, families navigating, tricky dynamics.
So the goal for you listening is really practical. It's about getting better at asking those good, open-ended questions, the ones that probe a little.
Right. Because lots of us fall into traps, don't we? Asking yes-no questions or just superficial stuff that gets superficial answers. This book aims to give you the tools to make your conversations, whether it's a meeting or just over dinner, more, valuable, more meaningful.
So the big shift is stop trying to be the person with all the answers.
Yeah, that's the fundamental shift they advocate. Being the answer person can actually be isolating. Instead, aim to be the person who helps everyone discover things together. That's where the real connection happens.
Okay, let's dig into some of the key takeaways then. Let's look at some specific questions and the stories behind them. Starting with theme A, clarifying intent. Making sure you're on the right track from the start.
Right, this is about efficiency, really, not wasting time. And the first question tackles that classic broad opening, what would you like to know about us?
Ah, yes. That moment when someone just says, so tell me about yourselves. And if you're not careful, you launch into a monologue.
Exactly. And the author shares this really vivid, almost painfully honest story from early in his career. He calls it the hole digger anecdote.
Okay, tell us about it.
So he just made partner, right? Eager to impress this big potential client, a major telecom company, he goes in armed to the teeth binders, slides, facts, figures. He's convinced he needs to prove his firm's credentials beyond any doubt.
Ready to overwhelm them with expertise.
Totally. So when the client executive gives him that opening, tell us a bit about yourselves, he sees his chance and he launches into this nearly 30-minute presentation, unrequested, covers the firm's history, mergers, clients, methodologies, everything he thought was important.
Oh, dear. I can see where this is going. Was he watching the client?
Apparently not closely enough. He was so focused on delivering his pitch, he missed the signs that their attention was just gone. Classic failure of reading the room, of listening.
And the result?
Predictable, really. Disaster. After this information dump, silence. Then one of the VPs looks at her watch and says something like, well, this has been helpful, thank you, but I really need to get to another meeting.
Ouch. Opportunity lost.
Completely. No rapport, no understanding of their actual problems. Now, contrast that with his senior partner, DeWitt, facing the same opening a year later with a different prospect.
What did DeWitt do?
Masterclass in restraint. He didn't say a word about the firm's history. He paused, let the silence sit for a moment, which the author notes was a key senior partner skill, made eye contact, and just asked those 4 simple words. What would you like to know about us?
Flipping it back to them.
Instantly, it put the responsibility for being specific onto the client, and they immediately narrowed it down. They said something like, we know your reputation generally. We want to understand your capabilities in Asia, and maybe more importantly, how your different teams actually work together.
Bingo. Right to a specific concern.
Exactly. And that comment about working together let DeWitt uncover a bad experience they'd had before with a different firm that was all siloed. He addressed that specific pain point, built trust, and it turned into an 8-year client relationship.
That's a powerful difference. So the lesson is never assume. Always clarify what they're really asking for, especially when time is tight.
Make sure your answer is right on target, as the book says. Don't just spray information.
Okay, second question under this clarifying theme. This one's for when the conversation gets bogged down in too much detail. The blah, blah, blah. The question is, what's your question?
Yeah, this one's definitely what they call tough love. You use it when someone comes to you for advice, but they spend ages giving you all this complicated backstory, circling the real issue.
We've all been there, listening politely while someone explains the entire history of a project just to ask one small thing.
Right, you're waiting for the actual point. The author tells a story about himself seeking advice from his mentor, Alan Weiss, about a difficult client who was micromanaging him. The author felt he had to give Weiss, 5 or 10 minutes of context first.
Laying the groundwork, setting the scene.
Exactly. He thought it was essential for Weiss to grasp the gravity, but Alan Weiss, being the insultant type we talked about,
He wasn't having it.
not at all.
No.
He just kept interrupting the preamble, apparently quite bluntly, repeating those 4 words. What's your question?
Wow. How does the author react?
He said he squirmed. He was forced right there to stop justifying and just crystallize his thinking. He realized his actual question wasn't about all the history. It was, how do I handle a client who's undermining me?
So it cuts right through the fog.
That's the power of it. It forces the speaker to distill the true kernel of their issue, as the book puts it. The conversation after that is instantly more focused and productive.
And if the context really is needed,
You can always provide it later after the real question is on the table. This just gets you there faster, clarifies things for everyone involved.
okay, let's shift from clarifying logistics to theme B, building connection and uncovering purpose. This is more about the emotional side, building trust.
And the absolute cornerstone here, maybe the simplest, most powerful question in the book, is just 4 words. What do you think?
What do you think? Seems so basic.
It is, but think about what it does. It doesn't just ask for an opinion. It signals immediate care. It answers that unspoken question people often have. Why should I care what you think until I know you care about me? Asking for their opinion shows you care. Instant rapport builder.
Makes sense. There's an anecdote about a university chancellor, right?
Yes, a vice chancellor named George who was incredibly frustrated after meetings with his boss, the chancellor. George would complain that the chancellor would talk 4 hours. Literally hours, telling his senior team exactly what he thought, his plans, his priorities. But he never once paused, looked at these experienced leaders who had to actually implement his vision, and asked that simple question, what do you think?
That must have been incredibly demotivating.
Hugely. The book argues that this need to be heard, to have your perspective valued, is one of the most powerful human motivators. People want appreciation. They want someone to genuinely listen, not just wait for their turn to talk.
There's a great quote related to this from Thoreau, isn't there?
Yes, it's perfect. The greatest compliment was paid to me today. Someone asked me what I thought and actually attended to my answer.
Actually attended the answer. That's the key part, isn't it? It's not just asking, it's listening.
Absolutely. When you ask, what do you think? You invite a meaningful response. And by truly listening, you create that feeling of value. Interestingly, in the anecdote, George eventually succeeded the chancellor, perhaps partly because he was good at managing despite not getting that affirmation.
Okay, next question for building connection. How did you get started?
Oh, this is a wonderful one. It's like a key to unlock someone's personal history, their passion, the spark that got them going. It bypasses the polished corporate story and gets to something more authentic.
Where does this lead the conversation?
The authors say it takes you on wondrous, uncharted journeys. It helps everyone see the ordinary as extraordinary by revealing the human story behind the role or the company.
And the example involves a billionaire.
Yes, Rich DeVos, the co-founder of Amway, huge global business. The author describes having a really casual lunch with him, just eating chili and asking this simple question.
And DeVos opened up.
Immediately, he apparently softened and started talking about how he and his friend Jay Van Andel decided to become entrepreneurs after the army. They heard about a product, Nutrilite, and wanted to sell it.
So the origin story, what was the key detail?
The sheer humility of it. DeVos explained they needed $50 for their first sales kit, and then he admitted Jay had to borrow the $50. I didn't even have enough money to contribute a penny.
Wow. A multi-billion-dollar empire started with a borrowed $50 because one founder was broke.
Incredible, right? That question just peeled back the layers, revealed the drive, the risk, the friendship at the very beginning. It shows the humanity behind the success. And the authors say it works on almost anyone, strangers, mentors, family, because everyone has a starting story they often love to share.
This really connects back to what we discussed earlier with Socrates. It's about going deeper, which brings us to the idea of actively adopting the Socratic method.
Exactly. This is about more than just asking good questions. It's about using questions to challenge the very foundations of belief, the assumptions everyone else just takes for granted. Chapter 6 calls it Get Out of Your Cave.
Referencing Plato's allegory of the cave, can you quickly remind us what that is and why it matters here?
Sure. Plato imagined prisoners chained in a cave, only able to see shadows projected on a wall by a fire behind them. They've never seen the real objects casting the shadows, so they assume the shadows are reality.
So in a modern context, the shadows are things like flawed data, company slogans, the way we've always done things.
Precisely. We treat these filtered, biased views as the truth. So when someone says we need more innovation, that's often just a shadow and accepted idea that might not reflect the complex reality.
And the Socratic question is the tool to help them turn around and see the real object.
That's the idea. Instead of making a statement like, our customer service needs to improve, which is just a shadow of dissatisfaction, the Socratic approach is to ask, how would you assess our current customer service levels? What data are we using?
Or in a personal conflict, instead of saying, you're always angry, maybe ask.
Something like, when you express anger, how do you think it impacts the people around you? What's the effect? It shifts from accusation to exploration.
So it's about questioning definitions and assumptions. If someone says innovation, ask.
What does innovation actually mean in our specific context? What would it look like? If someone wants work-life balance, ask, what does that look like for you day to day? It forces people out of their comfortable shadows into a more challenging but ultimately more rewarding space of real understanding.
Gently nudging people towards examining their own beliefs rather than just telling them they're wrong, avoiding the unexamined life, as Socrates would say.
Right. Now let's move into theme C. This is about strategy, performance, and challenging mediocrity. These questions are less about connection, more about driving results and ensuring alignment.
Okay, starting with question 6. How will this further your mission and goals?
This one's crucial. When you see a person or an organization about to make a big decision, spend a lot of resources on something that just doesn't seem to fit with their stated purpose, their core identity.
Because the mission statement should be the guide, right? The true north, as the book calls it.
Exactly. Deviate from that and you get lost. The story here involves the CEO of a large nonprofit medical center, Life Health. Let's call him Rick Haber. He was planning this really aggressive, hostile takeover of a smaller hospital, St. Francis.
Why? What was the goal?
Mainly to grab their well-regarded cardiac program, which Life Health didn't have. Haber was known as a very driven, competitive guy.
Okay, so the author sensed a mismatch.
A big one. This aggressive move didn't seem to align with a nonprofit's mission. So the author asked Haber to actually recite Life Health's mission statement.
Put him on the spot. What was it?
Haber proudly stated it was about offering effective health maintenance, illness prevention, caring treatments, all at the lowest possible cost. You know, typical nonprofit health mission.
And then came the power question.
Yeah. The author asks, essentially, how does potentially crippling a smaller community hospital to take their program actually further that mission of maintenance, prevention, and low-cost care?
Oof. Direct hit. How did Haber react?
It stopped him cold. He hesitated, and then admitted the move was probably driven more by his own ambition. I'm a pretty aggressive guy, he apparently said, than by Life Health's actual purpose. The author even pushed back, asking where hijacking a competitor's program fit into the mission statement.
So the question acted like a brake, an alignment check against ego.
Exactly. It forced him to see the potential disconnect between personal drive and organizational values, potentially preventing a costly move that wasn't true to their core beliefs.
Powerful stuff. Okay, next one challenges performance directly. Is this the best you can do?
Right, and the author's caution, use this one sparingly. It's demanding, potentially motivating, but it can also be really frustrating if used poorly. It's the tool of leaders who expect absolute excellence.
And the classic example is Steve Jobs.
The most famous one, yes. With the original Macintosh back in the early 80s, Jobs was obsessed with making things insanely great. He told the engineer in charge of the boot-up time that it was too slow. Fix it.
So the team worked on it.
They did. They managed to shave off, say, 5 or 10 seconds, proudly showed Jobs his response, looked at the results, acknowledged the improvement, and just asked, "Is that the best you can do?" Then walked out.
Demoralizing, I bet.
Initially, yes. They went back, worked harder, shaved off a few more seconds, presented again. Jobs still wasn't satisfied. But then he did something crucial. He reframed the challenge.
How?
He quantified it in human terms. He said something like, if you save 10 seconds off the boot time and 5 million people boot up every day, that's 50 million seconds saved daily. Over a year, that's dozens of lifetimes saved. Making it 10 seconds faster means you give back dozens of human lives.
Wow. Suddenly, it's not just about code, it's about saving lifetimes.
That reframing transformed it from a technical problem into this profound moral mission. The team was galvanized, found the extra seconds. The question pushed them, but the reframing provided the motivation.
There's another story like this with Henry Kissinger.
A similar dynamic, yes, perhaps even more relentless. Kissinger demanded absolute perfection in policy reports for the president. His assistant, Winston Lord, submitted a draft he thought was excellent. Kissinger's response, "Is this the best you can do?"
And Lord rewrote it.
Again and again, 8 times in total, apparently. Lord was completely drained, exasperated. On the 9th draft, he finally walked in and said, with total conviction, this was absolutely, positively the best he could possibly do.
And Kissinger's reaction.
Legendary, and maybe a bit cruel. He simply said, in that case, now I'll read it.
Unbelievable. But it illustrates the point that question used by someone demanding excellence can push people to their absolute peak.
It sets an incredibly high bar. Mediocrity isn't an option.
Okay, the last strategic question is very practical, especially for sales or anyone trying to get an idea adopted. Are they ready to buy?
Yes, this forces you to step back and objectively assess. Have the fundamental conditions for agreement or purchase actually been met? The authors lay out 4 essential conditions, and they use some famous product failures to show what happens if even one is missing.
Okay, what's condition 1?
Need or opportunity. Does the potential buyer clearly recognize they have a significant problem your solution solves or a major opportunity it helps them seize? Is the need felt?
And the example of failure.
The segue. Remember the hype. It was going to revolutionize cities. They predicted selling thousands a week. Reality, they struggled to sell 10. Why? Because most people didn't feel a burning need for it. They had cars, bikes, buses, feet, no perceived need, no sale.
Okay, condition 2.
Ownership. Does the buyer feel they own the problem? Do they feel responsible for fixing it and empowered to take action?
How did this play out poorly?
President Carter's energy crisis speech in '77. He called it the moral equivalent of war, asked Americans to conserve drastically. His popularity tanked. Why? Because most Americans felt the problem belonged to OPEC or big oil companies, not their personal driving habits. They didn't own the problem, so they didn't buy the solution.
Makes sense. Condition 3.
Dissatisfaction. Is the buyer sufficiently unhappy with the current situation or the available alternative? Are they actively looking for something better?
And the failure example here.
Quadraphonic sound in the 70s. Technologically superior to stereo, right? 4 speakers. But stereo was already really, really good. Consumers were generally very satisfied with it. So quadraphonic sound, despite being better, flopped. Not enough dissatisfaction with the status quo.
Interesting. And the final condition, number 4.
Trust. Does the buyer trust you or your organization as the right provider? Do they trust your solution will actually work as promised? The Dubai Ports World deal in 2005. They bought a British company that managed several major U.S. ports. Economically sound, perhaps, but politically, there was huge pushback in the U.S. over national security concerns about a Middle Eastern government-owned company running ports. The deal collapsed primarily due to a lack of trust in the new provider, even if the service itself was fine. No trust, no sale.
That's a really clear framework. Need, ownership, dissatisfaction, trust. Asking, are they ready to buy? Forces you to check all 4 boxes.
Exactly. And if one is missing, you know where you need to focus your efforts, maybe building dissatisfaction or establishing trust before you even think about closing the deal. Use other questions to fix the missing link.
Okay, this brings us to our final theme. Theme D, life reflection and legacy, turning these powerful questioning techniques inward.
Yes, using them for personal growth and maybe mentoring others. We start with Peter Drucker's famous 5 essential questions. Originally for organizations, but Drucker coincidentally found them just as powerful for individuals.
Right? He argued that successful organizations constantly revisited these. How do they apply personally?
Well, question one, what is your mission? For you, this means defining your core values, what you stand for, how you want to treat people, maybe even your purpose. It's like writing your personal constitution.
Okay. Question 2. Who is your customer?
For an organization, it's clients. For you, it's about consciously deciding who you invest your time and energy in. Are the people you prioritize your personal customers reflecting your values, challenging you, energizing you?
Makes you think. Question 3. What does the customer value?
Personally, this is about understanding what your friends, family, colleagues truly value in their relationship with you. Not what you think they value, but what they actually treasure. It's that Maya Angelou idea. People remember how you made them feel. Are you meeting their core relational needs?
Important distinction. Question 4. What results expectations?
This is about clarity. Do the important people in your life know what you expect from them? And crucially, have you asked them what they expect from you? Is there mutual understanding on that?
Closing the loop. And the final Drucker question.
Question 5, the action step. What is your plan? You've defined your mission, identified key relationships, clarified expectations. Now, what are you actually doing about it? What are the steps, short and long term, to live that mission and nurture those relationships? Without a plan, it's just aspiration.
That's a remarkably comprehensive framework for a personal check-in. Moving to another powerful reflection question. If you knew you had only 3 years to live, what would you hope to achieve personally and professionally?
This one's designed to really shake things up. The authors deliberately chose 3 years, contrasting it with, say, a 90-day prognosis.
Why 3 years specifically?
Because with only 90 days, the focus often becomes, understandably, on wrapping things up, making amends, preparing for the end. Think of Gene O'Kelly, the KPMG CEO, who wrote Chasing Daylight after getting that kind of diagnosis. It's about closure.
But 3 years.
Yeah.
That's different.
It's long enough to start something significant, to make a major change, invest deeply in something new, build something meaningful. It forces you to think about creation and impact, not just closure. It asks, what bold things could you still achieve if you had a clear deadline but still some runway?
So it's meant to prompt action now, not just reflection about the past.
Exactly. To shake you out of the daily grind and confront your real priorities. What would you do differently if you knew time was finite but still offered opportunity? They even suggest writing down your 3-year plan and sealing it as a commitment.
Making it concrete. That act of writing it down probably increases the chances of actually doing it.
Significantly, yes. It moves aspirations towards reality.
Okay, finally, a much gentler question, but one described as magical. What made this day more special than any other?
Yes, this is designed as a way to end the day focusing deliberately on the positive, the moments of joy or meaning. It's inspired by the Passover Seder question. Why is this night different from all other nights?
How did the author use this personally?
He used it with his young children each evening. He noticed that if he just asked, "How was your day?" they'd often default to the negatives, playground snubs, difficult homework.
The stuff that sticks out easily.
Right. But when he shifted the question to what made today special, their focus changed instantly. The negative stuff faded, and they'd recall these small, positive moments, answering a hard question in class, finding a cool rock, a nice chat with a friend.
It reframes the whole reflection on the day.
It creates what the author calls sparkling moments of high happiness. It encourages you and the people you ask to actively look for and savor the good things, the small victories, the moments of connection that often get overlooked.
A really lovely way to cultivate gratitude and connection at the end of the day, recognizing the extraordinary in the ordinary.
Precisely.
So we've covered a lot of ground, a lot of powerful questions and stories from this material. Thinking about the listener, what's the big strategic takeaway here? How do you actually put this into practice?
I think the fundamental message from Power Questions is really clear. The quality of your questions dictates the quality of almost everything else. Your relationships, your effectiveness at work, even maybe your overall satisfaction with life. Remember that CEO mentioned early in the book. He judged advisors not by their resumes, but by the questions they asked and how well they listened.
So the question itself is the tool. It unlocks conversation, it builds trust in a way that just making statements rarely does,
Right.
and it forces that critical thinking we talked about.
Exactly. Whether you're trying to land a client, solve a problem, or just connect better with your kids, starting with the right question is usually the most powerful first step.
And we should remember, we've only touched on a handful of the questions here today.
Oh, absolutely. The book itself apparently contains nearly 300 more, categorized for all sorts of situations: winning business, coaching people, handling crises, building relationships.
Which makes it sound like a really practical toolkit, not just, abstract philosophy. These are tools for everyday conversations. The real shift happens when you stop trying so hard to impress people with your answers.
And start focusing on truly understanding them through your questions. That's the core transformation the book is aiming for.
Well, hopefully this discussion of the material you provided on power questions gives you some immediate things to try out.
The challenge really is simple, isn't it? Start asking better questions. See what happens.
That's today's breakdown. While this discussion cannot replace the book's full text, it can offer a glimpse into its teachings. I hope you found this discussion helpful, and I look forward to sharing more. Let me know what book next you want to discuss.